And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, we are going to be recapping all of the NBA games that have been going down yesterday. And we are going to make some predictions on the in-season tournament games that are going to be happening today and the potential results of some of these in-season tournament games, right? So let's go ahead and dive right in. So, as we know, the Lakers got absolutely destroyed by the Timberwolves, so we're not going to talk about that game. The Bulls, they ended up beating the Nets 128-102. Josh Giddey ended with a triple-double, 20 points, 13 rebounds, and 11 assists. And on the Brooklyn Nets side, no one really played that well. So, no one noteworthy to really talk about. I'm skimming through a lot of this because we are low on time, so I have to, speed through some of this. The Celtics, they ended up winning 108-89 against the Miami Heat. Jaylen Brown had 29 points. And Jason Tatum had 18 points and 11 rebounds. Excuse me. Jacquez Jr., he ended with 19 points and 10 rebounds. Tyler Hero, he ended with 19 points as well, but again, just wasn't enough to go up against the Celtics. And the Hawks, they beat the Pelicans, and Trae Young ended with 12 and 15. He shot terrible from the field, 5 for 16 from the field, but again, those assists, they speak for themselves, but that is just awful efficiency. CJ McCollum ended up returning in this matchup. Same with DeJounte Murray going up against the Hawks, but they still ended up losing. DeJounte ended with 7 points and 10 assists, and CJ McCollum ended with 29 points. But again, DeJounte going 2 for 15 from the field is not ideal, and it's not going to help you win games in the slightest. Now, today is a very, very important day for in-season tournament games because this is where a lot of teams are going to try and look to clinch, right? So the games that are going down, the Knicks are playing the Magic, the Grizzlies are playing the Mavericks, the Warriors are playing the Nuggets, the 76ers are playing the Hornets, and the Bucks playing the Pistons, the Wizards playing the Cavs, the Pacers playing the Raptors, the Jazz playing the Thunder, the Spurs playing the Suns, Houston playing the Kings, and the Trailblazers going up against the Clippers. So let me just quickly try and break all of this down real quick and explain the significance. So as you can see, we have the group play. So we'll start with the Eastern Conference because that is a little bit easier to navigate. So I think right now there is 5 teams right now that are still in the race to potentially be able to secure a spot in the in-season tournament, right? Now, there's several things that have to happen because of that. So right now, Orlando is 3-0, and Milwaukee is also 3-0. But there are also 2 other teams that are 3-0, the Pistons and the Knicks, right? So the Bucks, they're going to match up against Detroit. And then the Knicks, they're going to match up against the Magic, right? So essentially, whichever team is able to win these games is most likely going to be able to become an Eastern leader in their respective group. And because of that, that will ultimately give them a spot in the in-season tournament, right? You can see that the Bucks, they're in the same spot as the Pistons, and the Knicks, they're in the same spot as the Orlando Magic. So if the Knicks win, then they'll be 4-0, and they'll easily have a spot in the top seed, depending on their point differential. But they'll be an Eastern Conference leader, right? Now, again, same thing happens if the Bucks win, same thing happens if Orlando wins and the Pistons win. Now, if either one of those teams lose, they're going to have to hope that they have a better point differential than the Boston Celtics right now. Because the Celtics have a point differential of plus 23, and they've already played all of their games, and they have a record of 3-1. So if any of the teams are going to be 3-1 that is going to make the wild card spot, they have to have a better point differential than the Celtics, which is 23. So as long as right now the Pistons, they have a point differential of 28, and so if they're able to maintain that point differential despite losing, then most likely they're going to be the team that ends up taking that spot in the wild card, right? It's dependent on a lot of things, so that's why it's rather confusing to explain all of this. And now we move on to the Western Conference, which has so many teams eligible to compete. Like, aside from the Houston Rockets and Golden State Warriors, who have already clinched, a majority of these Western Conference teams are fighting for a spot, right? Now, there's a lot of things that have to happen in order for all of these teams to make this spot. But most of the teams right now in the Western Conference are either 2-1 or 2-2. And even then, the 1-2 teams still have a really good chance of making it. And really, it's going to be down to point differential and record. It's a lot to break down, and it's not, I can't really do it justice in just this one segment. But from what it's looking like, it would seem like the team with the best chances of making it into the wild card spot is going to be either the Dallas Mavericks. Actually, yeah, it's going to be the Dallas Mavericks. They seem like they're in the best spot because even if they lose a game, they're just going to have to hope that another team loses the game. In fact, all of the teams that are 2-1 lose their games. And then they'll most likely have a much better point differential than the rest of the teams that lose their games. Realistically, the Lakers could still make the in-season tournament if things play in their favor. If the teams that are 2-1 end up going 2-2, and if those teams end with a worse point differential than them. So incredibly unlikely that happens, but again, it can happen. So that's really all that I can explain, but I'm with how it works in the Western Conference, because it's incredibly complicated, and it's like certain teams have to win out, certain teams have to have a better point differential, other teams are going to have to this, that, and the other. It's very confusing, but when it's all said and done, I'll be able to break all of it down in the end. But as of right now, we're going to get into our predictions, and we're going to speed through them and then end the segment there. I think the Knicks are going to beat the Magic. I have faith in the Knicks. Their defense is bad, but their offense is great, and they're playing at home. So it's going to be a close one, but I think the Knicks are going to get it. The Mavericks, they're going up against the Grizzlies. I think the Mavericks are going to have this. I'm not entirely sure, because this Luka and Ja Morant battle is going to be something special to watch. The Warriors, they're going up against the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets are going to win. The 76ers, they're going up against the Hornets. I think the Hornets are going to win. Also, the Warriors, they do not need to win in this game, right? They don't need to win at all. If they lose, it doesn't matter. They've already clinched a spot in the in-season tournament, so they're totally fine. Like I said, Hornets, I think they're going to beat the 76ers. I'm finally going to pick the Bucks to beat the Detroit Pistons, because it seems like the Bucks are finally back on the right track. I'm going to pick the Cavs to beat the Wizards, obviously. The Pacers to beat the Raptors. The Thunder to beat the Jazz. This one's going to be a tough one. Spurs or the Suns? The Spurs have been on fire with Victor lately, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the Suns just because Kevin Durant and his value with the team. Houston against the Kings, I'm picking Houston. And finally, the Clippers, I'm picking the Clippers against the Trailblazers. So that is all. That is it. That's the end of this final segment, and that is the end of this show. So thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether it's a hot take, whether it's a burning question, and if you really want your comment and or question to get noticed on the next show, then I recommend using Super Chat or the link displayed below the ticker. Either or really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That's all that I have on today's podcast, so thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna